If you have any preliminary questions, feel free to let me know. I saw on your registration that you're just here to, kind of be open-minded and learn the information at hand. But if there's anything coming up for you or you have a question, then feel free to just unmute or enter that in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. So I'm glad you're here. Really, the goal today is just to provide some general information about sex, relationship, and intimacy coaching and what that looks like with me, a certified sex, relationship, and intimacy coach. And again, that it can look different depending on who you work with. But that's why I'm really just focused on what my art and craft looks like today, what it does not entail, and just provide some general information on how relationship and intimacy coaching might benefit you or others in general. And then at the end, if you have any questions, we can review those. So let's just jump right in. I'd love to just introduce myself preliminarily. My name is Jamie Azar. For those of you I haven't met yet, though, fun fact, I'm a former high school English teacher of 13 years and creative writing teacher and literacy coach turned sexologist. So about 3.5 years ago, I left my career of 13 years to start my own business. I had been teaching all around the United States and abroad, actually. However, I felt like this was no longer for me, and the public education system was no longer serving me. So I took my passion for education into a new field and started my own business, Erotic Expressions, which is my own private practice where I work with both singles and individuals, partners plus, to unleash their inner prisons and reclaim their right to pleasure on their own terms. So I'm a coach. I do coaching. I'm also an educator at heart, public speaker. I consider myself to be a creative, multi-passionate entrepreneur. And I'm committed to helping people unlock that passion and creativity in their own lives, whether that's in their sexual relationships, romantic relationships, platonic relationships, careers, their own creative or artistic endeavors, and just embrace their eroticism in general, which for me extends far beyond the bedroom and sex and really encompasses more of, like I said, passion and creativity and feeling authentic in what you do and who you are. So, as mentioned, my passion for education launched me into becoming a sex coach. I've always supported people in cultivating healthy relationships with themselves, with their crafts, with others, formerly right in the context of education. So, working with teachers and students and administrators and leaders of all different forms and backgrounds. In addition to this, I saw that people, including myself, needed support when it came to dating, relationships, sex. We live in a very sex negative culture. And while right, sex is rampant in our culture, and it appears that we're a very hypersexual culture when it comes to sex, not many people are actually enjoying the sex that they're having. And I also felt that there was just a general lack of ethics and transparency, especially when it came to just dating and relationships and communicating desires and needs. And I wanted to kind of contribute to changing those narratives and bringing more education and sex positivity to people, and also the education and resources that they might find useful when it comes to making their own informed choices around the type of sex that they're having, the relationships that they're co-creating with others. And yeah, so that led me to Los Angeles Sex Therapy University, where I got my certification. I studied the psychology of pleasure, and now I'm also a program coordinator for them. I run my own business, and as mentioned, I host workshops, do public speaking, and I've been able to break out of the 9 to 5, which was also one of my goals, to be a solopreneur. So here we are today. So let's get into it. What is relationship and intimacy coaching? So, sex, relationship, and intimacy coaching for me is a collaborative, client centered process that supports individuals or partners plus. So, I work with people of all different relationship styles, constellations, and structures, monogamy and in non monogamous relationships as well. And the goal is to help those folks cultivate healthier, more fulfilling connections with themselves and others. And again, that may or may not involve sex at all or romanticism. And I offer space for people to define their desires around that as well. So for some people, right, they may not want sex and romanticism to be a part of their relationships. And so I really also emphasize that intimacy can be a spectrum. And again, we can decide how to co-create the relationships we want on our own terms that feel most authentic to us. However, most of the time, I do focus on building emotional intimacy with yourself, with your partners, friends, even developing trust in yourself, but also trust with your partner's boundaries, desire, and just overall shameless expression, and really letting go of all of the scripts and norms and expectations that create pressure for us and really just hijack our pleasure. So I get a lot of questions, how is coaching different from therapy? Unlike therapy, which often focuses on healing past wounds, coaching emphasizes more growth in the present, empowerment, and actionable steps to create the relationships and intimate lives my clients want in the present and future. So it is not to say that I don't take time processing past wounds or shame or trauma or abuse that has happened with folks. However, in doing that, I'm also, entering into that work with that person with an awareness that we are also looking at how this shows up in the present and how we want to heal that and move forward, right? Again, with those actionable steps. So I really appreciate people who are ready to do this work. They're ready to process and they're ready to move forward in the present and the future, right? But there's absolutely space in my practice to heal those past wounds, to take time to process that as well. It's very much a part of my work. However, we're again focusing on present and future as opposed to just the past, which is more specific to therapy. All right. My unique approach to working with clients, I'm very client centered. I believe the client is the expert on their body, on their experiences. And my goal as a coach is not to tell you what to do and tell you how to think. It's to empower you to unlock your own intuitive and creative knowing, the answers that are already within you, the wisdom that is already within you. Again, that intuition and self trust. And in the process of that, right, a lot of it is taking away the shame or the trauma or self-doubt or imposter syndrome, right, or low self-worth or all of the things that might be wrapped up in that, but empowering my clients to feel like they are the experts and they do know their bodies and their bodies know best, and to start trusting that and feeling safe in that. I've been told that I'm very non-judgmental. A lot of people I work with, even after a consultation, 15-minute consultation or a first session, will say, it just felt so good for me to be able to share what I haven't been able to share with anyone, right? Or to just get this off my chest or share what happened to me in a way where you're not judging me, right? And I feel safe with you and safe in this space. And so just that non-judgment, and the quote comes to my mind that shame dies in places, what is it? Shame dies when stories are told in safe places, right? Like essentially that shame dies when we're able to share that with others in safety. And I think that can be really powerful. It's just creating that space for shame to die essentially and be reborn in again, as empowerment, as pleasure, self-trust, self-confidence. My sessions are very collaborative, so I do come in with expectations, and my clients know this, that hey, we have a goal, we're working on something today and we're going to walk out of here feeling like we accomplished something, right? And it's exciting, even though it can be uncomfortable sometimes too. All of that can exist. So I'm very collaborative. My clients get to choose their own adventure. However, there's a structure and a framework built into that. And really what makes it collaborative and differentiated and unique to each person is really the inquisition that I take, right? I'm here to ask questions. I'm here to note patterns, and I'm here to get curious, right? And encourage your self-curiosity and compassion as well. So I would say what makes me unique as well is just my ability to witness and listen very attentively and get really curious in a non-judgmental way that kind of those questions are able to lead people into unlocking their own understandings or notice patterns in a way that creates shifts in certain systems, right? Or cognitive patterns or behaviors that aren't serving them anymore, right? And we get to look at those blind spots, right? Holistically, focusing on the mind and the body. Okay, we're not just talking, we are tuning into the body, we're grounding into the body, we're incorporating psychosomatic practices, right? So we're not just talking our way into our feelings, we're taking the time to really feel those feelings and sit with them, and get curious around them, and use creativity, whether it's in the form of art or music or movement, journaling, visualization, meditation, breath work, all of that to transmute, right, and create new patterns of behavior and thought systems that are more empowering for us. I also, offer accountability to my clients. So they know, okay, like Jamie's gonna, we're gonna have goals set. She's gonna hold me accountable. She's gonna ask me what feels new or different the next week that we met. If we didn't achieve our goals, why not? Let's get curious around that, right? How can we use that with data? So I'm absolutely not shaming anyone around along the way. However, I do hold my clients accountable, and that's what helps them to be successful. And I think that separates my work and my sessions from therapy or maybe other coaches is that my clients aren't just coming to talk, they're coming to work as well. And they're deriving their own solutions and actionable steps. So they really do feel like they're making progress or growing or learning and evolving and meeting their goals, whatever that is, right? So, all right, I'm going to pause there for a minute. I know that was a lot. How are you doing over there, Tom? Do you have any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns? You're not sleeping behind the wheel yet, are you?
No, all good.
All good? Okay, perfect. All right, we'll keep going then. I wanted to take a minute to clear a misconception about sex coaching. So, ironically, it's not all about sex and orgasm. And though some sex coaches do offer hands-on work, I personally do not. And just to put that out there. So a lot of the work I do does involve talk-based coaching, as mentioned. And it doesn't necessarily involve, like I said, sex or orgasm, talking about penetration. It doesn't involve having more sex necessarily, unless that's what people want, right? And we can consider goals around that. But a lot of the work I do, like I said, involves healing shame and healing trauma, reframing mindsets and beliefs and norms and scripts and expectations around sex, whether that is mononormativity or the idea that everyone wants sex in romantic relationships, which isn't necessarily true. It's creating more space for intimacy on a spectrum and understanding that there are many ways that we can relate with others that can bring us pleasure with sex or without sex. And so, really, it's about how can we expand our definitions of intimacy, sex, pleasure, romanticism, redefine relationships on our own terms outside of the norms, so that we truly feel like we're living in alignment and we're not living in someone else's script or expectation that doesn't really align with us and that we maybe don't feel like we had conscious even choice over. So we can always rewrite our scripts. We can always, redefine and expand our definitions of sex and pleasure. And we can do that beyond pressure and expectations and norms. And that's really the work that I do with folks is unpacking all of the conditioning and all of the scripts that are interfering with our genuine, authentic pleasure and really figuring out what kind of stories and scripts do you really want to have around sex and pleasure? What really serves you? What are your true desires outside of all these expectations and shoulds? What do you really want and how do we get that right for you? So, who do I generally work with? I generally work with men and women between the ages of 25 and 60 years old. As mentioned, I work with both individuals and partners plus, both monogamous folks, non-monogamous folks. Um, Individuals that I work with generally healing shame, trauma, may have a history of sexual abuse. They may be experiencing sexual challenges or difficulties or dysfunctions. For women, that might be anorgasmia or a difficulty or inability of orgasming. For men, that might look like early ejaculation or erectile variability, for example, or what more people might know as ED. However, I prefer the term erectile variability over ED, given the connotation of the term dysfunction. Um, People dealing with low desire or low self-worth, maybe individuals struggling with dating or singlehood, and people that just can't find their way in embracing singlehood and may feel shame around that, or frustration with dating, or just feeling like they're not successful with dating. I've worked with people experiencing divorce, post-divorce, breakups. So I've also worked with couples through conscious uncoupling. So not just how to stay together, but how to amicably uncouple as well. I've dealt with people in big life or career transitions, changing careers, moving to different cities, navigating grief, people navigating their sexual identity, or maybe their orientation is changing, either, maybe they're in a relationship and that's happening as well. I've worked with people who want to explore non-monogamy or open their relationship for the first time. When it comes to partners, generally the presenting issues are like mismatched libidos, or maybe one person has low desire or no desire at all. The passion has maybe waned in the relationship. They're looking for maybe conflict resolution strategies. There are breakdowns in communication, or maybe they just want to improve sex and pleasure, explore novelty, maybe kink or BDSM is they're curious about that. Or as mentioned, like wanting to open their relationship, for example. And I think just to kind of wrap up here, like I was asked, what's something that I love about my work? And for me, it's just being able to witness my clients' growth and healing in real time and watch them come in, vulnerable and simultaneously become lighter and cultivate more courage and empowerment. And to me, that's just makes my job completely worth it. And witnessing people experience more pleasure in their life on their own terms in a way that isn't so full of pressure and expectations, where sex doesn't feel like a duty or a chore, where people don't feel unseen or unheard in their relationships, and really like cultivating what I like to call radical self-love and giving themselves full permission to have the sex and relationships that they want is what I live for in this job. Building emotional resilience and ultimately cultivating self-trust and moving beyond low self-worth and self-doubt, and having some fun along the way for sure makes it priceless. After clients have a session with me, I want them to feel lighter. I want them to feel like they can breathe easier, like they can just take a deep breath and say, wow, like it just felt so good to have this conversation with you today. And that's generally the feedback I get. I want them to feel more grounded. I want people to leave having more clarity or feel more curious about something, even though there aren't answers right away. I think it can be really powerful. And I see this happen in session where, we uncover something and there's a lot of different threads and strings, but nothing really makes sense yet. And that can be a really exciting place to be in. And instead of being afraid of that, the uncertainty, like feeling excited by the possibility around that, and for self-discovery and healing. And that's where I thrive with my clients. And reminding them that they have agency and autonomy in everything that they do, and they do have the tools for resourcing. So really helping my clients like feel like, okay, from working with Jamie, I have this whole toolkit, right? And I have the tools I need to build my window of tolerance, right? To soothe my nervous system, to navigate the challenges of my life with both resilience and curiosity and courage, right? I can be afraid and I can also be excited, right? I can allow all of these spectrums of emotions to exist, and I can feel open and hopeful to possibilities, right? So giving people hope is I think one thing that I'm really known for. All right, not bad. I said a half hour. We've got a couple minutes for questions. How you doing over there, Tom? What's coming up for you? What's resonating? What's not? What questions do you have, if any?